And this is Mick, the Doctor of Digital.
And welcome to Music 101. Music 101 is created to empower music itself and legendary icon in the music industry for sure. Another week, another great episode. Tom Lehrer, the satirical maestro who made music laugh.
Yes, he's a really interesting man, and one after another, some are passing away, so we've got to spend some time and honor them. This is a deep dive in one of the most brilliant and unique features in 20th century music and comedy. This is exploring the extraordinary life and legacy of Tom Lehrer, a Harvard-trained mathematician who became a musical satirist so sharp and witty that his songs still resonate powerfully today, decades after he largely retired from performing. At 97 years young, Lair represents a fascinating paradox, a man who created not only about 3 dozen songs, and that's it, yet left an indelible mark on American culture. His work bridged the gap between highbrow intellectual humor and accessible entertainment, creating what one critic called music for adults that kids could appreciate and that would make them feel smart and in the know. What makes Lehrer particularly remarkable is how he weaponized his mathematical precision and musical sophistication to create devastatingly funny social commentary. As Randy Newman once noted, Lehrer's wit and musicality are unparalleled. Perhaps even more impressive is how relevant his decades old songs remain in our current cultural moment.
Mr. Mick, tell us about Layer's early life and education. How does someone go from being a child prodigy in mathematics to become a musical satirist?
Well, Tom Lehrer's origin story reads like something out of a novel about gifted children. Born on April 9th, 1928, in New York City, Thomas Andrew Lehrer displayed prodigious musical talent almost from the cradle, beginning classical piano lessons at the tender age of 7. But music wasn't his only gift, his mathematical abilities were equally extraordinary. Picture this: while most teenagers are struggling with algebra, 15-year-old Tom Lehrer was enrolling at Harvard University to study mathematics. This wasn't just academic acceleration for its own sake. Lehrer had the kind of mind that could see patterns and connections that others missed, whether in mathematical equations or the absurdities of human behavior. At Harvard, Lehrer didn't just excel academically, he graduated magna cum laude with both bachelor's and master's degrees in mathematics. But what's fascinating is how he used his time there. Instead of being the stereotypical serious math student, Lehrer was entertaining friends and classmates with witty, irreverent songs. He was already demonstrating what would become his signature approach, taking his formidable intellect and using it not to intimidate or to exclude, but to illuminate and entertain. What's remarkable about Lehrer is that he refused to choose between his two gifts. In an era where specialization was increasingly the norm, he chose to marry mathematics and music in ways that enhanced both. His mathematical training gave him precision with language and structure that made his lyrics devastatingly effective. His musical training allowed him to create melodies that were not just catchy, but served the satirical content perfectly. This combination created something entirely new in American entertainment. Lehrer wasn't just a funny songwriter, he was a satirist who understood both the power of mathematical logic and the emotional impact of music. He could take complex ideas and make them accessible while simultaneously taking fashionable trends in academia and culture and cutting them down to size with surgical precision. The Harvard years were crucial because they showed Lehrer that entertainment and intellect weren't opposing forces. The smartest humor often came from the deepest understanding. This would become the foundation of everything he did later. In conclusion, Lehrer's unique educational background created a perfect storm of talents that would revolutionize musical satire.
Mr. Mick, how did Layer transition from entertaining college friends to becoming a professional satirist? And what made his approach to musical comedy so distinctive?
Lehrer's transition from college entertainer to cultural phenomenon is a masterclass in how authentic talent finds its audience. His professional career began in 1953 with his self produced debut album, Songs by Tom Lehrer. Think about what this meant in 1953. There was no internet, no social media, no easy way for unconventional artists to reach audiences. Lehrer sold his album independently, relying on word of mouth and radio exposure to build his following. But what made his approach so revolutionary wasn't just his independence, it was his complete reimagining of what musical comedy could be. Traditional musical comedy of the era was often gentle, predictable, and designed not to offend. Lehrer threw that playbook out the window. His songs were clean in the sense that they weren't profane, but they were ruthless in their intellectual honesty about human nature and social hypocrisy. Take his early classic, The Old Dope Smeddler Peddler, or Be Prepared. These weren't just funny songs, they were social commentaries wrapped in melodies so catchy you'll find yourself humming them while contemplating their darker implications. For his Boy Scout satire, Lehrer had discovered something profound. If you could make people laugh while you were making them think, you could get away with saying things that would be rejected if presented straight. Also, his first foray about his alma mater was Fight Fiercely, Harvard. When Tom attended Harvard, he earned both his bachelor's and master's degrees, and he honed his talent among classmates with his witty, irreverent songs, even to laugh at themselves. Education was a consistent punching bag for all the right reasons as he took on the current theory of the day in The New Math. In our days of no child left behind, the failure of the U.S. Department of Education to increase test scores, declining standards, and Common Core, Lehrer's work remains timely, and he was prophetic. What made Lehrer's topical work so effective was his refusal to be purely partisan. While he was liberal in his politics, his satirical eye was focused on human folly wherever he found it. He could mock the pretensions of his own educated liberal milieu just as effectively as he could skewer conservative targets. What's particularly brilliant about Lehrer's approach is how he structured his songs. Drawing on his mathematical background, he understood that good satire, like good mathematics, requires perfect internal logic. Each verse builds on the previous one, each rhyme serves the satirical purpose, and the overall structure creates an inevitable conclusion that feels both surprising and completely logical. His subsequent albums, More of Tom Lehrer, 1959, and the live recording of An Evening Wasted with Tom Lehrer, 1959, expanded this approach and solidified his reputation. The live album is particularly revealing because it captures not just his songs, but his between song patter, showing how he could make audiences complicit in his satirical worldview. By the late 1950s, essentially, Lehrer had created a new genre, intellectual satire that was genuinely entertaining rather than merely clever. He proved that audiences were hungry for comedy that respected their intelligence while challenging their assumptions. In conclusion, Lehrer's distinctive approach revolutionized musical comedy by combining intellectual rigor with genuine entertainment value.
Mr. Mick, tell us about layers evolution into more tropical material. With that was the year that was, and how the social commentary reflected the turbulent 1960s.
The mid 1960s marked a crucial evolution in Lehrer's career with the release of That Was the Year That Was in 1965. This album, inspired by his work on the American edition of the British television satire That Was the Week That Was, represented Lehrer at his most topically engaged and socially conscious. He did make a foray into pop parody. When You Are in Love, the Whole World is Jewish, and his slant on love was witty and smart. The one about Oedipus Rex included the lines, Yes, he loved his mother like no other. His daughter was his sister, and his son was his brother. One thing on which you can depend is he sure knew who a boy's best friend is. What's fascinating about this period is how Lehrer's mathematical and mind approached the chaos of the 1960s. While the decade was marked by social upheaval, war, and rapid cultural change, Lehrer's response wasn't emotional or overwrought, it was coolly analytical and devastatingly precise. Songs like Pollution are his environmental satire. Pollution prefigured environmental movements that wouldn't gain mainstream traction for years. Lehrer was identifying patterns and contradictions that others wouldn't recognize for decades. National Brotherhood Week is his commentary on performative tolerance. On National Brotherhood Week, he sang, "And the rich folks hate the poor folks. All of my folks hate all of your folks. It's American as apple pie." Before the chorus, he sings, "National Brotherhood Week, National Brotherhood Week. New Yorkers love the Puerto Ricans 'cause it's very chic. Step up and shake the hand of someone you can't stand. You can tolerate him if you try." Lehrer was making fun of corporatizing diversity and the ridiculous idea that acting brotherly to those around you could be decreed from on high with a set amount of time. The song reverberates today through the endless and often hilarious kerfuffles around DEI. Oh, the Protestants hate the Catholics, and the Catholics hate the Protestants, and the Hindus hate the Muslims, and everybody hates the Jews. National Brotherhood Week is a perfect example of Lehrer's approach to social commentary. Brotherhood Week was an actual observance promoted by the National Conference of Christians and Jews from 1934 until the mid 1980s, one week in which Americans were encouraged to set aside their differences and celebrate unity. Blair's genius was in recognizing the fundamental absurdity of trying to solve deep rooted social problems with a week of polite gestures. His lyrics cut right to the heart of American hypocrisy. The idea that we could schedule tolerance, that real prejudice could be overcome with a symbolic display of unity. The song's cheerful melody makes the bitter truth of his observations even more powerful. Lehrer was liberal, an Ivy League academic who opposed the Vietnam War, but he didn't come off as sanctimonious. He quoted his bad review from the New York Times. They wrote that his muse is not fettered by such inhibiting factors as taste on his songs, album songs by Tom Lehrer. The Vatican rag showcases his ability to identify the absurdities and contradictions in contemporary practices. There's a fabulous live version from Copenhagen in 1967. The Vatican rag demonstrates another aspect of Lehrer's satirical genius, his willingness to take on sacred institutions with a scalpel rather than crude mockery. The song emerged from the Catholic Church's Vatican II reforms, which introduced vernacular language and contemporary music into the liturgy. Rather than attacking the Church's theology, Lehrer focused on the awkward intersection of ancient religious practices with modern marketing sensibilities. It is my personal favorite from his work. Dr. Demento featured this song regularly on his radio show. To learn more, you can visit the Tom Lehrer Wisdom Channel and listen to the Vatican Rag, especially that fabulous version live from Copenhagen in 1967. The lyrics are below, and the introduction spoken. Another big news story of the year concerned the Ecumenical Council in Rome, known as Vatican II. Among the things they did in an attempt to make the church more commercial was to introduce the vernacular into portions of the Mass to replace Latin and to widen somewhat the range of music permissible in the liturgy. But I feel that if they want to sell a product in this secular age, what they ought to do is to redo some of the liturgical music in popular song forms. I have a modest example here. It's called the Vatican Rag. First, you get down on your knees, fiddle with your rosaries, bow your head with great respect, and genuflect, genuflect, genuflect. Do whatever steps you want if you have cleared them with the pontiff. Everybody say his own, Kyrie eleison, doing the Vatican rag. Get in line in that processional, step into that small confessional. They're the guy who's got religion'll tell you if your sin's original. If it is, try playing it safer. Drink the wine and chew the wafer. 2, 4, 6, 8. Time to transubstantiate. Make a cross on your abdomen. When in Rome, do like a Roman. Ave Maria, gee, it's good to see you. Getting ecstatic and sort of dramatic and doing the Vatican rag. During this period, Lehrer was also addressing the Vietnam War and nuclear proliferation with songs like So Long, Mom, a song for World War II, for his darkly humorous take on nuclear war. Written during the height of Cold War tensions, this song is a fake tribute from a soldier to his mother, cheerfully describing how he'll be vaporized in a nuclear strike. It's both hilarious and genuinely chilling. Lehrer's ability to make a joke land and make you think afterward is on full display here. No question, the stakes were high, and Tom nailed it in We Will All Go Together When We Go. If Lehrer's work had a national anthem, this might be it. Set to an upbeat melody, the song gleefully imagines the end of humanity via nuclear apocalypse. It's morbid, yes, but somehow it feels comforting too. If we all go together, at least we won't be lonely. It's dark humor at its absolute finest. Along these lines was his devastating piece, Werner von Braun. These weren't simple protest songs, they were complex examinations of how individuals and institutions justify morally questionable actions. Von Braun was a Nazi, but slipped easily into the early American aspiration to build better rocketry. The topical period also showcased Lehrer's evolution as a performer. His live recordings from this era show an artist at the height of his powers, combining musical sophistication with comedic timing and social insight that few performers have ever matched. In conclusion, Lehrer's topical period demonstrated how satirical art could provide profound social commentary while remaining genuinely entertaining.
Definitely entertaining. And Mr. Tom Lehrer, thank you so much for the legacy that you brought us to the world. Mr. Mick, let's dive into the technical aspects of Lehner's work. What made his songwriting so musically and lyrically sophisticated?
Understanding the craft behind Lehrer's work requires appreciating how his mathematical training informed every aspect of his songwriting. This isn't just intellectual background, it's the foundation of what made his songs so devastatingly effective and enduringly memorable. From a musical standpoint, Lehrer's compositions demonstrate remarkable sophistication. Take The Elements, which is probably his most technically impressive piece. Clear is his rapid fire periodic table performance. The rapid fire listing of the chemical elements is set to Gilbert and Sullivan's Major General song from The Pirates of Penzance. This wasn't just a clever parody, it was a demonstration of Lehrer's deep understanding of musical structure and his ability to marry content with form. The genius of the elements lies in how Lehrer solved the prosodic challenges of fitting scientific terminology into a pre existing melodic structure. Each element name had to fit not just rhythmically, but in a way that maintained the song's momentum and clarity. This required the same kind of systemic thinking that makes someone excel at mathematics, the ability to see patterns, solve complex puzzles, and create elegant solutions to seemingly impossible problems. Lyrically, Lehrer's work demonstrates what happens when someone with a mathematical precision approaches language. Every word choice is deliberate, every rhyme serves multiple purposes, and every verse builds logically towards its conclusion. Consider Poisoning Pigeons in the Park for a classic performance. Some of the political songs Lehrer wrote outlived the skirmishes they were about. No one remembers the United States Fish and Wildlife Service fed pigeons corn and peanuts coated in pesticides to cull their population in Boston parks. But once you've heard it, who could forget Lehrer's lilting mockery of the policy? We've gained notoriety and caused much anxiety in the Audubon Society with our games. They call it impiety and lack of propriety and quite a variety of unpleasant names, but it's not against any religion to want to dispose of a pigeon. The juxtaposition of the cheerful, innocent imagery of a spring day with the dark humor of the actual activity creates cognitive dissonance that's both funny and unsettling. What's particularly sophisticated about Lehrer's lyrical approach is his use of what linguists call register clash, the deliberate mixing of different levels of formal and informal language or different specialized vocabularies to create comedic effect. He might combine the language of scientific precision with colloquial expressions or formal academic terminology with playground rhymes. His rhyme schemes themselves are mathematical in their complexity. Rather than relying on simple AABB patterns, Lehrer often employed intricate internal rhymes, near rhymes, and multisyllabic rhymes that demonstrate both technical skill and serve the satirical content. These aren't just showing off, they create a sense of inevitability that makes his satirical points feel logically inescapable. The harmonic sophistication of Lehrer's piano arrangements also deserve recognition. While his melodies are accessible and memorable, his harmonic choices often include subtle dissonances and unexpected progressions that mirror the satirical content. The music itself becomes part of the argument he's making. Perhaps most importantly, Lehrer understood the crucial relationship between tempo, melody, and satirical content. Fast paced songs like The Elements use speed to create a sense of breathless absurdity, while slower songs like The Masochism Tango use languid rhythms to create ironic contrast with their dark subject matter. This is his darkly comedic dance number. His performance technique was equally sophisticated. Laird developed a stage persona that was deliberately anti theatrical. No dramatic gestures, no attempt to sell the material through performance energy. Instead, he presented himself as a friendly professor sharing interesting observations. This understated approach made his most devastatingly satirical points feel conversational rather than confrontational. The craft behind Blair's comedy also involves his masterful use of misdirection. He would often set up expectations with innocent sounding opening lines, then gradually reveal the darker implications of what he was talking about. This technique requires tremendous skill in pacing and structure. Revealing too much too early kills the effect, while revealing too little leaves the audience confused. In conclusion, the technical sophistication of Lair's work, musical, lyrical, and performative, elevated his satirical content and ensured its lasting impact.
Indeed, musical and lyrical. How old Tom Lehrer influenced subsequent generations of satirical artists, and what is lasting impact on American culture?
Tom Lehrer's cultural influence extends far beyond his relatively small output of songs, creating ripple effects that continue to shape satirical and comedic art today. To understand his impact, we need to recognize how he fundamentally changed what was possible in the intersection of music, comedy, and social commentary. Before Lehrer, musical comedy tended to be either gentle or inoffensive or crude or obvious. Lehrer created a third path, intellectually sophisticated satire that was simultaneously accessible and genuinely funny. This approach opened doors for generations of performers who wanted to combine entertainment with social insight. Weird Al Yankovic, probably the most successful musical satirist of the past several decades, has explicitly acknowledged Lehrer's influence. Yankovic called him the master of biting satire set to music, but Yankovic's parody focused approach represents just one branch of Lehrer's influence. The more direct lineage runs through performers who use original satirical songs to comment on contemporary society. Bo Burnham represents a fascinating evolution of Lehrer's approach for the digital age. Like Lehrer, Burnham combines musical sophistication with satirical insight, and he's even created his version of the new math, a direct homage to Lehrer's work. But where Lehrer maintained an emotional distance from his material, Burnham incorporates personal vulnerability and meta commentary about performance itself. Tim Minchin, a Australian comedian and composer, represents another branch of Lehrer's influence. His influence extends even beyond musical satirist. His approach to intellectual comedy, using genuine knowledge and analytical thinking as the foundation for humor, can be seen in everything from The Daily Show's fact based political satire to the rise of smart comedy in general. And the academic world has also embraced Lehrer's legacy. His songs are studied in courses on American culture, satirical culture, and the intersection of mathematics and art. The Elements has become a genuine educational tool used by chemistry teachers around the world to help students memorize the periodic table. The influence of his performance style can be seen in contemporary satirical approaches. His technique of presenting devastating social criticism in a mild professorial manner has been adopted by numerous contemporary comedians and commentators who understand that understated delivery can be more powerful than bombastic rhetoric. Modern satirical television shows, from Saturday Night Live to Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, employ Lehrer's technique of using humor to make serious points about social and political issues. While their formats are different, the fundamental approach using entertainment to make audiences think critically about important issues comes directly from Lehrer's pioneering work. In conclusion, Lehrer's influence on American satirical culture has been profound and lasting, creating new possibilities for how entertainment can serve as social commentary.
Mr. Mick, one of the most intriguing aspects of Layer's career is how he essentially walked away from performing at the height of his popularity. What drove this decision and what did he do instead?
The story of Tom Lehrer's retirement from public performance is one of the most fascinating and counterintuitive career decisions in entertainment history. Here was an artist at the peak of his creative powers and public recognition who essentially said, "That's enough," and walked away to focus on teaching mathematics. Lehrer's decision to retire from regular performing in the early 1970s wasn't driven by declining popularity or creative exhaustion. Quite the opposite. He was still selling records, his songs were being discovered by a new generation, and he could have continued touring indefinitely. Instead, his retirement reflected deep philosophical convictions about the purpose and limitations of satirical art. In various interviews, Lehrer expressed skepticism about satire's long term effectiveness in creating social change. He famously observed that satirical art had proven ineffective against authoritarianism in historical contexts, particularly referencing pre World War II Weimar Germany. This wasn't cynicism, it was the realistic assessment of someone who had spent years wielding satirical weapons and understood both their power and their limitations. He had held prestigious institutions and professorships at MIT, Harvard, and UC Santa Cruz, and he was known as an exceptional educator who brought the same precision and wit to mathematics instruction that he had brought to satirical songwriting. What's particularly interesting is how Lehrer's two careers informed each other. His experience as a performer made a better teacher. He understood how to engage an audience, how to make complex ideas accessible, and how to use humor as an educational tool. Conversely, his mathematical training had always been the foundation of his satirical precision. During his academic years, Lehrer didn't completely abandon music, but he was rightly selective about his projects. His collaboration with Joe Raposo on songs for the educational program The Electric Company in the late 1960s and early 1970s could demonstrate his continued commitment to using music for educational purposes, but in a different context. The mystery deepens when you consider what Lehrer accomplished during his retirement as he retired. When he wasn't recording albums or touring, he was influencing generations of students and contributing to mathematical education in ways that many ultimately prove as significant as its satirical work. His 2020 decision to place his entire catalog in the public domain can be seen as the final act of his philosophy, a recognition that artistic work belongs ultimately to the culture that inspired it, and that the artist's role is to contribute to that culture rather than to profit indefinitely from it. In conclusion, Lehrer's retirement represents a principled artistic decision that paradoxically enhanced rather than diminished his cultural impact.
Mr. Mick, why do Tom Layer's decades old songs still feel so relevant today? And what do they tell us about persistent patterns in American society?
The enduring relevance of Tom Lehrer's work is perhaps the strongest testament to his genius as a satirist. While many topical comedians quickly become dated, Lehrer's songs feel remarkably contemporary, often seeming to predict cultural and political dynamics that wouldn't become obvious for decades. Take National Brotherhood Week, written in the mid 1960s about a well intentioned but ultimately superficial attempt to address racial and religious tensions through a designated week of tolerance. Today, as we grapple with corporate diversity initiatives, DEI, and Pride Awareness Months, Lehrer's satirical insights feel prophetic. He identified the fundamental problem while trying to solve deep structural issues through symbolic gestures, a pattern that is only intensified in our current cultural moment. The song's brutal honesty about American prejudices, its catalog of who hates whom, remains uncomfortably accurate. While the specific groups and tensions may have evolved, the underlying dynamics of tribalism and othering that Lehrer identified persist. His insight that tolerance can't be legislated or scheduled remains as relevant as ever. Pollution, another track from this period, anticipated environmental concerns that wouldn't reach mainstream consciousness for years. But more than just predicting environmental activism, the song identified the fundamental tension between industrial progress and environmental protection that continues to dominate political discourse today. Lehrer's satirical approach, focusing on the absurdities and contradictions rather than taking an explicitly activist stance, allows the song to remain funny rather than preachy, even as its environmental message has proven prescient. Perhaps more remarkably, Lehrer's exploration of moral compromise in his song about Werner von Braun continues to resonate in our discussions about technology, corporate responsibility, and scientific ethics. The song's central question, how do we evaluate the contributions of talented individuals who have participated in morally questionable projects, applies directly to contemporary debates about tech leaders, pharmaceutical companies, and academic institutions. The sophisticated intellectual approach that characterized Lehrer's work has also proven remarkably durable. Lehrer's technique of using humor to make serious points about social and political issues has become the dominant mode of political commentary in American culture. From Saturday Night Live to The Daily Show to countless internet memes, the approach of using satirical entertainment to process and critique contemporary events can be traced directly back to Lehrer's pioneering work. Lehrer reminds me of a song, an Elvis Costello song. I used to be disgusted, but now I try to be amused in his song, Angels Want to Wear My Red Shoes. While many contemporary satirists adopt explicitly partisan politics, Lehrer's more philosophical approach to human folly offers a model for critique that doesn't immediately trigger defensive reactions. Even his seemingly dated songs often contain insights that remain relevant. The Vatican Rag, ostensibly about Catholic liturgical reforms of the 1960s, actually explores a broader tension between traditional institutions and contemporary cultural pressures, a dynamic that continues to play out along religious, educational, and cultural institutions today. Perhaps most importantly, Lehrer's work demonstrates the enduring power of intelligent, well crafted satirical art to provide insight that transcends its immediate historical context. By focusing on fundamental aspects of human nature and institutional behavior, rather than just surface level political developments, he created work that remains illuminating long after the specific circumstances that inspired it have changed. In conclusion, Lehrer's continued relevance reflects both his satirical genius and the persistence of the human follies he so brilliantly identified.
And let's talk about Layer's remarkable decision in 2020 to place all his work in the public domain. What does that mean for his legacy and future artists?
Tom Lehrer's decision in 2020 to place his entire catalog into the public domain represents one of the most generous and philosophically significant acts in modern entertainment history. At age 92, when most artists are focused on maximizing the financial return on their life's work and their heirs, Lehrer essentially gave his artistic legacy to the world. This decision reflects deep philosophical convictions that have characterized Lehrer's entire career. Throughout his life, he prioritized education and cultural enrichment over personal profit. His original decision to leave performing for teaching demonstrated this commitment, and placing his work in the public domain represents the logical culmination of that philosophy. The timing of the decision is particularly significant given concerns about the increasing commercialization of cultural heritage. As copyright terms have been repeatedly extended and intellectual property law has become more restrictive, many important cultural works have become inaccessible to educators, artists, and the general public. Lehrer's action represents a powerful counterexample demonstrating how artists can choose to prioritize cultural access over financial gain. He's taken all of his material and put it in the public domain. The educational impact is particularly significant. The elements has long been used by chemistry teachers, but now it can be freely incorporated into digital learning platforms, modified for different educational contexts, and used by educators worldwide without budget constraints. The decision reflects Lehrer's understanding of how his work functions culturally. Many of his songs have already become part of the shared cultural knowledge, referenced and quoted by people who may not even know their origin. For future artists, Lehrer's decision provides both practical benefits and a powerful example. The decision also ensures the permanence of Lehrer's cultural contribution. Perhaps most remarkably, the public domain release has increased rather than decreased interest in Lehrer's work. Far from making it less valuable, the free availability has led to renewed appreciation and discovery, demonstrating that cultural accessibility and cultural value are not opposing forces. In conclusion, Lehrer's public domain decision represents a generous and forward thinking approach to artistic legacy that benefits educators, artists, and audiences worldwide.
Indeed, worldwide, and again, Mr. Tom Lehrer. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, and of course, your legacy to the music industry. So, Mr. Mick, what will be our last message for Mr. Tom Lehrer?
Well, hopefully that we get and share our own work as well too, and get that out there. So, Doctor of Digital podcast, you can listen to that, and also on LinkedIn, create a valued book in 90 days. Connect with me, and also, of course, pick up a couple volumes on Amazon, both Burning America and On Track Ian Hunter.
Yes, people, in the golden age of mid 20th century, comedy Tom Lehrer emerged as a singer genius, a Harvard mathematician by trade and musical satirist by destiny. And would you like to plug in something, Mr. Mac?
You bet. So, the Doctor of Digital podcast, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Doctor of Digital, and also pick up Burning America and On Track Ian Hunter.
Yes, indeed. Let's support Mr. Meg, the Doctor Digital, the podcast itself, and of course, the coaching. Because if you support him, more and more empowering episodes of the podcast, more and more empowering authors to come. And please do listen to our baby podcast, Mental Health 101. Mental Health 101 is created to empower our mental health awareness. So, Mr. Mick, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, my friend. Until next time, the day is full.
More to come, people. See you soon.